to say that usually how we define talent and the talent strategy is largely determined by the business strategy and the changing market scenario. So that would largely determine the core competency mapping which happens, the talent mapping, as well as high potential talent identification, as well as the development and succession and talent acquisition. So all of it starts right in the beginning with the business strategy. So for instance, currently with so many changes happening, we would primarily look a lot at things like learning agility in high potential talent. We would look for someone who is ready to easily embrace change, lead change. So those are some things one would look for in a high potential talent. Now, how firms identify talent varies largely by size, nature of business, and I'm just sharing some of the approaches which business may take. So one would be the very simple buddy kind of approach, wherein people in decision-making roles would identify talent based on whom they know in the organization. So that would be an approach which perhaps earlier years was there, wouldn't be very prevalent now. You could have what is known as the tenure approach. So you identify high potential talent because they've been in the company for a long time. So it's due to them to be identified as potential. You could have a manager appraisal approach, which would be based on performance assessment. So the focus primarily would be on performance rather than potential as such. It would be largely a very individual judgment kind of a thing. And you have the decision maker consensus approach. So this is where key decision makers would actually discuss an employee's profile towards high potential development. They would look at the specific talent, they would do talent calibration. You would have the very popular 9-box grid. I'm sure in many of your organizations you'll use the 9-box grid. And you have a criteria-based approach, which is a more sophisticated approach, which involves criteria that looks at how high potential employees behave. Assessment tools such as personality, cognitive behavioral, 360-degree tools, as well as others which an organization may choose to use. So increasingly, most organizations are looking at a more tool-based validation for high potential talent because increasingly they want to make it more and more objective. One of the popular tools which is used is a learning agility tool. Many of you are maybe aware of this tool. It is a tool which basically measures adaptability looking at 5 observable factors. The popular factors in learning agility are mainly mental agility, which looks at how comfortable an employee is in terms of dealing with complexity, examining problems, doing problem solving, making connections between the dots. People agility, very, very important, knowing themselves well as being able to deal with a variety of people across different situations and very complex, tough situations. Change agility, people who are very curious, have a passion for ideas, like to experiment, can deal with the discomfort of change. And very importantly, results agility, which looks at delivering results primarily not just in any situation but a first-time situation. So an entirely new situation which you've not handled before and you're able to do it very successfully. This is combined with self-awareness, which becomes a very, very important factor, wherein an individual has personal insight, can clearly understand his or her strengths and weaknesses, and basically you're aware, you don't have any blind spots anymore. This is a tool which is very popularly used to assess learning agility, and it's used in the talent identification process. Career trajectory is another aspect which is used in the process of identifying high potential talent. In many organizations, you would call it just career potential, or you could call it a career trajectory. It has 2 aspects. One is in the process, there would be a career conversation which happens between the manager and the colleague, wherein the manager will schedule a conversation, look at the colleagues' career aspirations, development needs, as well as actions to support outcomes, would also look at additional development opportunities, and would review the colleague's professional profile as well as the individual development plan. And in part 2, basically the manager would need to have confidence in the colleague that that colleague can take on larger roles, has the potential to grow further. So potential for what level of organizational leadership? What level of larger roles can a colleague take in the organization? How versatile is the colleague's and the breadth of experience that the colleague brings in? What is the kind of skill level input in the context of future role expectations? What are the core competency strengths? What are the gaps in the context of future roles? So if a colleague needs to take on further roles, what is the kind of support that the organization would need to provide this high potential colleague? So the manager determination of the career trajectory can be highly subjective. So in order to deal with this subjectivity, you have tools like the learning agility tool. We also, while doing a talent review, you also look at retention risk. I won't go too much into that, but all of you are aware of that, we definitely would look at how high is the risk for retention. We would look at the next potential positions and roles that a colleague could undertake within the organization. What are the types of roles for which a colleague would be suitable. Look at the position vacancy risk also beyond the retention risk. So for instance, if a colleague is likely to go in for a secondment or an assignment in another function, then there is likely to be a position vacancy risk. Nominate colleagues for open positions which may exist across the organization. Looking at succession. And I now come to what is a very popular development approach, which is the 70-20-10 development approach. Many organizations also have it as the 70-15-15 approach too. It's an approach which has been popular right from, came around somewhere around 1983, but is still very popular. It kind of came in the pre-internet era. And according to this approach, 70% of the development of a high potential talent would be basically based on job experience. So job experience could be through performance support aids, it could be through work simulation, stretch assignments. Stretch assignments could be in terms of having a role which has greater complexity, or it could be geographical complexity in terms of going in a different market and working. International assignments could be job rotations across functions. Induce self-directed learning, which would be largely online programs which would be available. Action learning projects, and increasing the responsibilities that the colleague currently has. This would be some of the job experiences which would be provided. In terms of learning from others, in terms of relationships, that is 20% of investment there. So it could be in terms of teaching others, providing opportunities for that colleague to teach others. It could be providing coaching. It could be peer coaching, peer-to-peer learning, providing mentors across the organization, having senior leaders mentor high potential colleagues. It could be mentored across geographies, so you could have a mentor in a different country, or you could have a mentor who is in a different function based on what the requirement is for the high potential talent. And lastly, the 10% component, which is very popular again, is formal training, which could be in terms of classroom-based training or blended learning kind of programs which would exist within the organization. So this is a very popular approach and is very prevalent across companies. You also have an approach which is slightly different from the previous 70-20-10 approach, which is known as a portfolio approach, which basically looks at learning primarily from new experiences. So the 70% component, or the large component, you would say basically would come from not just traditional experiences and based on developmental methodologies, but also experiences which are totally new, which would be things like community and non-profit work. So it's believed in the portfolio approach that for the development to really happen, the experience needs to be really new for the colleague. So it needs to be something totally different from what the colleague's been exposed to earlier. And learning from others, it could extend beyond formal coaching and feedback sessions. So learning largely using the social media, which is very popular. So learning through virtual, online networking, communities of practice, knowledge sharing, through posted user and peer-generated content. So basically using a lot of online forums for high potential talent to connect. And learning from courses and materials. content, and things like audio and video casts, webinars, performance support material from mobile devices, live and virtual classroom-based programs which are very popular. So this is basically another approach which is very similar to the 70-20-10, but basically leverages technology to a greater extent. But for the learning strategy to be really successful, what is very important is to have an individual development plan for every high potential talent, which is totally catered to the specific needs that the high potential talent has to develop further. The other thing would be, which is very important, is to identify specific needs in terms of coaching and mentoring, leverage recognition and reward mechanisms to sustain that development, sustaining that momentum of developing the high potential talent, to give the talent visibility throughout is very, very important. Create a continuous and review and feedback loop. So it's very important that the high potential talent gets regular feedback, has a review mechanism periodically. So the colleague knows where he or she is heading in terms of a career path, knows what the organization, how the organization values the colleague. And as Mr. Krishnan had also shared earlier, it's very important that our leaders are accountable for talent development and retention. That is what decides whether learning strategy would be really effective or not. I would just like to share two benchmark practices across the industry before I close. One is GE, which is very well known for some of the high potential programs that it runs, and they have a very strong employee rotation program which has been designed to help high potentials understand business from different functions and geographical perspectives. So over 3,000 of their employees participate in programs which basically comprise of 3 to 8 month rotations. And the rotations are offered in certain functions like communication, engineering, IT, manufacturing, operations. And the program basically takes 2 years to complete. And they have found it to be a very, very effective program. The other program which I would like to highlight is done by Fidelity. They have a high potential development program called a General Management Apprenticeship Program. And they have found that this program is very successful because it has been continuously refined to keep in mind what are the current needs which exist. They also have created an endless feedback loop by having a structure which helps the high potentials to get regular feedback in multiple ways. They have also built a learning community to enable high potentials to bond. So definitely any high potential would like to interact with other high potentials. So there is a definite need to have a social network, and that's something they provide. Also take advantage of key touch points such as selection and matching high potentials to the right assignment. So they take a lot of care when they actually select assignments for high potentials. And they have created metrics that inspire. They have some short stories which they keep highlighting to share how the program has succeeded. So these are some practices I would